we are working within a 3-year time frame. As you can see, I'm going to crosswalk each point in time so that you can see that we're looking back a year, we're working on the current year, and then we're looking ahead to the next year. So in June, what we brought to the board was a budget that they adopted for 1920 at that point in time, based on the information we knew from the governor's budget and the feedback that we had also received from the state legislature. One thing to keep in mind here in June, we bring forward to the board a budget that is still pending approval by the governor. The governor, there's always a timing of when we come forward and when the governor signs off on that budget. So with that being said, that's why then in August, we go back to the board. It's known as a 45-day budget revision, because anything that came in afterwards that was in the governor's budget, we let the board know, here are some changes. So as an example, what we brought forward to the board, the governor had made some contributions to the pensions that helped us reduce a little bit of our costs. So we factored that in that update to the board. One thing I want to note, and it's key to understand from the budget standpoint, it's a living document. Similar to the LCAP, it's always an ongoing review of the finances and in our priorities as it relates to the LCAP. And so then we get to the month of September, and September is what we bring back to the board, how the prior year ended. We spend the summer months, what we say closing out our financial ledger for the prior year. What's critical about that is when all those revenues, all those expenditures are accounted for, any amount left over or however that bottom line number comes in is what then impacts also 1920. I can't touch this hard. So that's why it's critical when we're doing this work, how then it comes into play for the current year. So that's looking back. Then, given some of our work and working with outside parties, we had to bring a budget revision to the board on October 8th. I know looking at some of the items that we were trying to solve for this year, we had to present to the board an update on the budget again. And then there are statutory requirements that twice a year, and I'll explain here this third one, but twice a year we bring in an update looking at our budget. Like I said, we're constantly looking at our budget when new information comes in, and we're looking at our student enrollment and a few other things. We bring that first report to the board, again looking at our budget, another estimate is in December. At that point, we see how things are occurring, our actuals from July through October. We can evaluate that time frame and say, hey, these are how things are trending. We may need to make some slight modifications to our budget in 1920 and provide the board an update then, see how we're doing. And then, now we're working, the screen is working in 1920. And then we shift into January, so just a few weeks ago, on January 10th, because that's by law, the governor has to provide his proposal for the budget for next year, for 2021. So he gave us a few updates. That helps us, again, start to reevaluate some numbers for current year, as well as some numbers for next year. And that's critical because that's just his proposal. This really starts the work at the state level, then working with the state legislature, working with a lot of parties from January until June. There's a lot that's going to happen. So it's just a snapshot. Doesn't mean it's guaranteed what you put in the budget. It can change. But for our purpose, it helps us plan with what's provided to us. Then in March, now we're back to 1920 again, we come to the board with another, call our second report to the board on the budget. Now we've had more information. Now we look at actual data from July through January. Evaluate it, look at it, make sure, things, how are those trends coming along? Are we staying within budget? Or are there some other areas that could be going a little bit over? We make adjustments at that point. Yeah, looking at our 1920. Now, with the current financial position that the district's in, we're required now to take another report, our third budget update to the board in May. We only look at a portion of our budgets with the general fund, and we look at the operations. If there's something material, we then update the county and we update the state. So that is a new requirement. hopefully we'll be able to shift away from that in the near future. So that's 1920, and then we get to June. And so in the middle of us doing our work for 1920, we're already doing 2021 along the way. So we bring to the board, but also bring to the group here, the LCAP. We also bring our first reading, it's the public hearing of the budget for the board to review. So that's why your work now, and especially over the next few months, is critical, because your feedback, that's why it's always an ever-evolving process. Your feedback comes into how we look at 1920 and how we're looking ahead for 2021. And then we start the cycle all over again. So when we're ending the year here in June, then that's kind of what translate to this. And then by next September, we'll be bringing to the board 1920. And the cycle continues. And so as I mentioned with the local control funding formula, these amounts here is what the state provides to school districts. This is that base. We don't dictate that, that's all the governor and the state legislature. So for Sweetwater, there are numbers right here. 7-8, 8,050, and for 9-12, 9,129. That's a fixed amount that we get for our students. Now, to give you a preview what was in the governor's budget, there's a factor of what the governor included, preliminary, is COLA, which is known as cost of living adjustment. It's a slight increase that they give on top of that base. They basically cover additional costs, things pricing going up, wages, those kind of factors. They give you a little extra. Again, it's all preliminary. Could change come June, but it's our starting point. So in the governor's budget for 2021, as we plan ahead, he's saying these amounts are going to go up a little bit. So we start to plan that based on these numbers. But how school districts get paid, and we'll touch upon here enrollment. Enrollment's a key factor, but it's this last piece. The way this calculation works is it takes this average daily attendance, ADA. So you'll hear us say a lot of that. So average daily attendance takes our enrollment and how often then the students are also in the classroom. So it's important. The more we can get our kids in the classroom learning, also how we get the money. So we track those percentages. We're hovering around, a little bit around 95% as a district. But every time, if we were to get that up, by 96, that's a couple $1 million more in terms of revenue. But again, there's a lot of complexity when it comes to this formula, but these are the key elements when we're looking at how we get paid as a district. And so this next slide is what I've been sharing. Dr. Danny's been mentioning this in her board updates, and then what I've been including in some of our financial presentations as well as to our principals. One key factor for this district, so as we look at the finances and we look ahead, and also as we look, in retrospect, looking back, the district has been experiencing declining enrollment. So when I just shared with you the factors that come into how districts get paid, when we have less students, that means less money coming in from the state. And so as you can see, just in this time frame, the district's lost 1,700 students. That is the size of one of our smallest high schools. You can just imagine one high school not being into that factored in for the district. So that's a lot. And as I showed you with you on the prior slide, on average, just that base grant, factoring those extra add-ons, you're looking at $8,000 to $9,000 students. Would multiply that quite a bit. Talking 17 million or so, 16, 17 million dollars that we've lost. But as we plan ahead, so as you can see, looking into our out years, our trends, our team works very closely with our feeder districts. And what we're seeing from the feeder districts is that cohort of students is getting smaller. So we're planning ahead. We have to see this trend, and we are adjusting our financial projections according to what we're seeing. So this is kind of our reality of where we're at. There's different factors that come into play, and we're controlling what we can, in terms of some of those, but that's the data point that we're really, monitoring that impacts the money. The other piece to this is that money goes jump on. So this one here, I just wanted to share with you this pie graph. So when you're looking at how much in total the district gets. So from a revenue standpoint, as you can see, this blue shaded area is that local control funding formula. It's all the money we get from the state. That's 81% of the district's budget. So anything that happens at the state level trickles down to the district. So we're very dependent on the state. So advocacy is key. The more together as all of you together, along with the district staff and others, the more we can advocate for student funding, the better. Maintain that or add more. And as you can see, very little in some of these other areas, federal and other state money. Other state money is where lottery goes in and some other things. So as you can see, as I mentioned earlier, $396 million is funding from the state, and then of that is the $54 million that some of you, in terms of the reporting requirement or your involvement as it relates to that LCAP, 54 of that $396 million. And then expenditures, it looks like we lost something. So what was noted here on this pie graph is this here are our personnel costs. It's about 87% of our budget is in personnel because we're a service provider. We provide services to our students. So a lot of it is in personnel costs. So with that being said, the other factor, so as I shared, revenues are going down. We have other costs going up. And when about 87% of our budget is in people costs, one thing what you see here on this table is it's reflecting the pension costs for our employees. This side is certificated, so mainly our teachers, our counselors, all of those who hold credentials. And then we have our classified staff, which are our support staff, such as our custodians and clerical support. So these are rates on the certificated side of things. The state legislature sets these rates. So over the last few years, this amount was about 8.25 back in 13-14. In 14-15, they changed that, and then they started to increase it with the intent to get to about 19.10. As you can imagine, that amount's been going up and up and up over the last few years. That takes a little bit of a portion out of our budget. And so that goes up, and that's all noted by the state. The state sets this in law. They will be revisiting this in 21-22, so next year. So when I show this compared to the classified, more than likely this will continue to go up. There is a state law that says they can't increase it no more than 1%, but the likelihood is next year this will probably go up. So that's a factor there. And this past year, in 18-19, the district, the employer portion to that pension for teachers and counselors and others was $36 million. Of that pie graph that I shared with you, $36 million was part of that. Now, on the custodian and clerical support staff, these pension rates are set by the board. There's a CalPERS board, it's independent. Every year, that board reevaluates the rates. So we get these amounts from them and their projections. They do a lot of analysis, known as actuarial analysis. They look at a lot of information. But as you can see, compared to the teacher piece, look at these rates. That's quite a bit. We're going up in the 25, almost 26%. So last year, the district contributed the employer portion, $14 million. So together, both those amounts, it's a big significant portion out of our district's budget. We can't control these. These are outside of our control. As you can imagine, I'm just trying to, costs going up, revenues going down. So at some point, it's got to intersect, and there's going to be a difference. Oh. I was, yeah, I hit the button at the same time. So then the next item here, I know this is a lot of information. We have reports that we put together for the board with a lot of detail. So this is just a very high level snapshot. It models what I've been sharing to the board in other presentations. So when we're looking at our budget plans, we always look at 19-20. This is still always moving throughout the years I mentioned to you in those different reporting periods. But then we start to look ahead 3 more years. we start to kind of like, what trends are we seeing in the out years based on those variables, those factors that we know from the state or from other areas. So when we're looking at 2021, as you're going to start doing that planning for the next year with LCAP, right now those revenues, and that declining of enrollment that I shared with you, and those expenditures, right now our projected shortfall is $30 million. That's the work that we're going to be doing with the board. That's the work, I know we've had early staffing allocations. They're preliminary. I mean, this is part of our work in doing the planning. That we're trying to solve that so we have a balanced budget. So then, based on the information that I just shared, we wanted to kind of pause and then in your respective tables, kind of have an activity and just reflect and provide some feedback. And the question we're asking is, if our enrollment and budget is consistently decreasing, then what do you think should be our next steps as we consider changes in our 2021 LCAP? Kind of set that piece, that perspective, and so what do you think from that standpoint? What would it mean to you? I think we said 5 minutes at your tables, and then we'll do a share out.
That's part of the
Okay, real quick. Start. If you have additional questions, your orange forms, start writing those down, and I get those done before the presentation's over. Okay, you guys have about 2 minutes. 2 minutes. Remember, the question is, if our enrollment and budget is consistently decreasing, then what do you think should be our next steps as we consider changes in our 2020-21 LCAP? Please stick to that question. please have your ideas ready. And a friendly reminder, we still have snacks and coffee in the back room. Okay, everyone. So hopefully you guys got together, figured out some next steps that we consider changes. So I'm gonna go to a table real quick and see if this works.
My name is Stace Becerra from Olympian High School.
Okay, everyone, please. We'll do that one thing with to infinity. There we go. Okay.
So none of our proposed solutions are easy, or would they be easy? But one of them, if we have fewer students to service, then cutting staff, both administrative and teachers.
All right, so my name is Robin Bray with Mar Vista High School, and I have 3, but I'm going to share one, and I'll share the others on the paper. So instead of cutting, I believe, like, instead of cutting the teachers or the staff or people that really love to work with the children, would be find a way that brings the children back to wanting to learn, because this school is supposed to benefit them, and then have them find a future in the workplace. But we've cut the arts out, and I believe that because we've cut the arts out, that I personally homeschooled my kids for a few years because I wanted them to get that enrichment. And so maybe, and I've heard from my own children, they don't like school because there aren't the arts and the fun things to do. And so that's only working with one side of the brain, and we're a whole being, so we need to work both sides, and especially play is the way that we learn. So if we found things that were more engaging for the students, I believe that they would attend, and then everybody could have a job, and then we can get more money.
Thank you. One more table. Our board. Next one. I asked you earlier. Our DELAC president, Guadalupe.
Yes. So we're having less students, less money. Why you are going to cut the staff of our schools? Why you instead, we have 5 assistant superintendents. So my question is that each of these one have secretaries. Why we don't cut these positions? Why we can cut? Do we cut 5? Why we can cut 2 or 3 positions and the staff of each one, and not cut the staff of our schools?
Thank you. Appreciate the feedback. And as you mentioned, they are tough decisions. I mean, based on this information, and The board we scheduled budget workshops last week. We had our first one, and then we have another one today. And it is looking at areas that when you mentioned in terms of our district office, our school sites. So we are sharing all that information, and many of these documents are available online, so you can look at that as well. We are reviewing that information to get that guidance from the board in terms of those next steps. So we are looking at everything to help solve for that for next year. So appreciate the feedback. Let's continue with that as we start to work together going forward. And so what we're looking at now here is the LCAP. And with your help, when we built that for 1920, we looked at what are the needs of our students, what areas did you provide feedback on? And so we've got listed there the chronic absenteeism, the college career readiness, English, language, arts, graduation rate, and math. Those are the key areas that we wanted to focus on as we were doing our work for this year. So just to put that in perspective as we did, the goal of the LCAP is to look at how you're doing, what was budgeted, and we're kind of going to go into this next slide. What did we initially budget? Through that work that we did in the spring last year, as we continue to monitor throughout the year, we're just providing kind of a recap in each of those respective goals, goal 1, goal 2, some of the key areas here just for your reference. Looking at tutors, we're working very closely with our principals to make sure we've got our academic tutors on staff to help support our students. Looking at different social emotional training for staff and students. These are just a few in these particular areas. This is where we started from. And then the next slide highlights goal 3 and goal 4. Same thing, areas that, you'd shared about parent workshops, and then also where my team and what we've been working very closely with school principals and directors is, that transparency with our finances. Came on board about a year ago. So we want to make sure that we're sharing with your group and with others, where are we as a district and what we can do. Not just from the finances, we've been really looking at systems, improving our systems along the way for reporting and access. So with that being said, this is what we budgeted. And then we're looking at, okay, so what's changed? Where are we? Because when we were doing our second budget report to the board, we had about 54 million. Where we're sharing things changed throughout the year.
For clarification. We don't understand what 0.2 or 0.8 means, so you might just kind of...
Oh, sure, we'll clarify. So when we're looking at the money, so I mentioned to you earlier, we had 52 million. That's when we were building the budget. But when things start coming from the state, the final numbers and things like that, where things may change, we're looking at 54. So we're doing that budget work. And so what this means here, when we were planning back in the spring, our campus assistants, so I know that that's related to one of our goals that relates to safety. 0.2 is full-time equivalent. That's the increment in terms of an employee. A full-time employee is considered a 1.0. So out of the LCAP funding, we had assigned in the spring 0.2, so 20% of that, or that full amount of their funding. This doesn't mean when we increased that we added more people. What we looked at and we reevaluated is, okay, we got a little bit more money here. How about we increase that funding? Because our goal is always to focus on LCAP, to keep, focusing and improving those areas with our goals. We changed the funding of a 0.2, we increased it to 0.8. So that campus assistant, let's say, is a one full equivalent of one full-time employee. 0.8, 80% of their position is being funded by LCAP. Make sense? And then, so we did the same thing with the librarians, the nurses, and the psychologists. We looked at where they were, and so as you can see, to help from the social emotional perspective, like the nurses and librarians also, we increased them. So the LCAP is paying 100% for the librarians and the nurses. Okay. And that's what we'll continue to evaluate, given where we're at with the funding, where our numbers come in as we start to look at the next school year, 2021, is how do we fund positions? So it's not that we added people, it's just we took those existing resources and gave an allocation from the LCAP. That's how things change throughout the year. Do we have questions? And I covered a lot, so hopefully if there's any clarifying or if there are any other questions. He's got a hand over. Is that what it is? You need the questions to go to you first?
We'll collect your questions if you still have them, and then we're presenting them here. I'll give you about a minute if you have more questions to add.
Okay, so we'll start with one because one had a few other questions. So we'll start with one here. It says, and it goes back to our pension slide that we were reviewing, is why is teacher pension more than 1%? For the example noted 17.10 in 1920, then to 18.4. So let me go back to that slide. I think the question related to this here. Now that goes back to, it's the statutory requirement. Even though it said 1%, they ended up, when this was implemented in 2014-15, these were the rates set by the state legislature, again out of our control, because their goal was to try and fund the pensions, and there's on an aggregate at the state level, it's unfunded, it's not fully funded if everyone were to retire tomorrow, so they were working on this goal to chip away at that amount. So these were rates that they established at that point. But that's why it says here the funding plan going forward, 1%. So this is an amount set by the state.
Can you inform the parents of the difference between a charter school and a private school and a public school?
That's a good question. Now, I've worked with both charter schools and the public school level. So if I go back to the funding rate, so charter schools are very much like, they're considered public schools. They get the same funding you see here that we as Sweetwater, as what we receive. The only thing is they go through a process of authorization that the state has set in law, where they go through the local school district for approval, and then they have some other mechanisms that they could also go to the county, depending on the appeal process. They can go to the county office of ed, and then, or the state board. So they operate as a standalone public school. They have a board. It's not an elected board, but they do have to follow transparency requirements known as the Brown Act in terms of posting notices, posting their agendas, those type of things. But they are a public school in the eyes of the state. Now, private school can be, a religious-based entity. I mean, that can have tuition paid independently, so typically they don't get funding other than some of the requirements under Title I or Title II. There is some private school funding that we have to pass through to the private schools, but they do not get funding from the state in that regard, from the state funding. So hopefully does that help answer that question? Charter schools are just like the public schools, and then you've got the privates that's independent. And then the next one is, are there any plans to sell unused district property to cover deficits? That's a good question. So a couple of years ago, there was the law allowed for the district to sell property and have those funds go to the general fund. That law ended about 2 years ago or so. Now, and the district does have surplus property. We are looking at one property, 3rd Avenue. If that were to be sold, because that did come up this past year, it was around valued a little over $5 million. We're working on revisiting that again. If that were to be sold this year, that goes into a separate fund. It does not go into the general fund that I was sharing earlier. It's known as our Special Projects Fund. It's known as Fund 40. So those monies would need to go there. So we're certainly exploring that as an option, but it does not help us close the deficit. Years ago, that was the case, but not at this point.
I'm translating. Do you know why, or the causes as to why our city or community population is growing, but our student population is decreasing? We have less district support. So why is that happening? I think that's what the question is. Why is our community, our population in the state is growing, but our student population is decreasing? Why is that happening?
So the governor even mentioned this when he did his press conference on January the 10th, that our student numbers, they even have projected are going down, I want to say we're about 250,000, 300,000 in the state. So some of the data that we've been looking at from a cabinet level, and as it impacts then the finances, is there's lower birth rates, is an example. The other factor too, as it relates to students, there's a lot of students and families moving out of state because higher cost of living. And then we're also a border district, so that is very unique to Sweetwater, that factor as well. But at least from a birth rate perspective, those numbers continue to go down. If we have less students, that's impacting us. So that's data that we've been tracking. We actually have, I believe it's going to the next board meeting, we're working with an outside firm it's a demographic company, consultant, who's going to help us look at that too, pulling a lot of data. But it looks like the trend in California, and not just here, there are other states too, where birth rates are going down and other factors. So we'll be analyzing that at some point. Okay, so the next question is, where is the report available to see what happened to the $43 million from last year? So what I can share, it's similar to, and it is online. Go back. When I came on at the district about a year ago, it was around this time when we were doing 17, 18. So it is available on the district's website, through the board. When we went to the board, I want to say it was September 24th, 2018. It'll show the revenues that came in for that year and the expenditures that came out. So it was a structural deficit at that point. A lot of it, as I've looked back to, is a lot of it's attributed to the decline in enrollment, so those revenue factors and some additional costs. But if you want to look at that report specifically and then compare it to where we're at now, it is online on the board agenda item. Plus, if you go to the finance or fiscal services division, we also have a section with all of our financial reports, so you can take a look at that.
We're translating it, so excuse me if I didn't get 100% translation, and we're also trying to understand penmanship. Penmanship, I think, is very important here. Okay, why does the superintendent have 5 assistant superintendents? Do they need that much assistance? Can you take away 3? I think that why does it have?
It relates to another earlier question too. So what I can say is we're looking at those particular roles as well. I know that the emphasis, one of them, like in my role, focusing on the finances, we have a role that looks at our facilities and maintenance. We have another role with equity and culture and student support services. And then we also have our instructional curriculum, teaching and learning. A lot of those roles relate to our LCAP goals. And then we also have an assistant sup for human resources for our staffing piece of it. So I know that these are all great questions. The support staff do have different focus areas, but that's something that the superintendent and the board will continue to review those roles and the support that they provide to the schools and the departments. So the next question says, funding meant for student support is shifted to payroll. How is the student being directly serviced academically by these positions? That says campus assistant, I think kind of tied to one of those slides. So that should tie to the work at the school site level, the role that each one of those roles and the services they provide to students. So dollars may have been shifted, but the expectation of what each role provides for students is really directly at the school site level. I think having those conversations with the principal or through school site committee or those kind of conversations can be better explained in terms of the roles that they're providing. So they should be enhancing and reflecting that for the student needs based on the needs are at each school. Each school is different, and so kind of evaluating where that would come in.
What are you doing to assist and or support staff in special education classes? Not directly budget, but they want to, what's being done about that?
I could only speak to the finance piece of it. That would definitely be a great question for our director of student support services there, as well as our assistant superintendent. But I know I'm working closely with them, and then also working closely with the principals. We're looking at the student needs, what's in their IEPs, and staffing according to that.
Okay, so you mentioned that if you sell a property, that money goes to another type of funding or account. How does this benefit students and or the school?
Yeah, at this point, it's considered a property, special projects property fund, so it's intended for more for facilities. So that making that connection for students would be using those funds to help renovate or help improve a campus facility. Okay, so this one has a couple of questions. The first one says, when is the audited actuals available each year? So as we noted here, these are available in September. We have to, by law, provide that to the board by September 15th. So those are available at that point. We then work with our auditors from this time frame through December into January. They then review our audit, or the financials, and then certify that at that point. So it's September of each year. And then the next question is, when is the audit by the outside auditor conducted? So that's during that time frame. They do, throughout the year, they do some preliminary work. So I want to say around March, April, depending around to the spring break, they will be at school sites. They review the ASBs, and they also review attendance. And the attendance is key because that's what ties to the revenues. So they're looking at that around March and April. They come back in the summertime and work with some of our staff, and also in the state and federal office. They look at our title monies. They look at all of that information and how that was spent, especially on the personnel side of things. And then they come in usually October, and then the auditors, because the question, independent auditors. So our audit firm, it's called Crow. They are independent auditors. And so then they work through that in the fall, from October through January with us. So it's actually an ongoing, we keep them updated throughout the year on our finances, and then they come, and it is a new firm. They started this past year. They've been doing a lot of work with us and looking at our financials. And then the next question says, with the increase in pension costs, is that reflective of increase in payout of pension? Our pension payout increase, which is causing pension, I'm trying to follow this one, our pension payout increase, which is causing the pension increase implemented. The pension costs, those numbers that I had shared, is based on our payroll. So whatever payroll we issue in this current year, that's a factor in what we pay to the state. So whether there are payouts, there is at a high level at the state, under those pension programs, if there are more parties and more individuals getting pensions, they look at that from a funding standpoint. So there is analysis that the state does on who's retiring and so forth. So that does kind of in essence almost trickle down to those rates that I shared, but at this point, that doesn't correlate. We just pay off our payroll and that particular rate. Hopefully that helps answer that.
Okay, so this was as in regards to if our funding is decreasing, how do we avoid hiring so many substitutes instead of teachers? They have a concern that there's a lot of subs in teacher positions. So as we're moving through this deficit, how do we prevent that?
That's a good question too, and that's something I think my colleague in HR would also help, support with that. What I could share is, it's working very closely with your principals there, but a lot of times we do have some positions that are very difficult to staff. So I know in the area of special ed, our HR team's working very closely with, a lot of local colleges and so forth to get candidates. So that is an area that they're struggling with, and that's why we do have some substitutes. But I know that working very closely with your principals and HR is diligently trying to get those positions filled so we can minimize that impact to students in the classroom. Are they looking at redistricting? That's a good question. I believe, and from what I've heard, I believe the district went through that a couple years ago. I'm not aware of any changes right now. That certainly can always be an option, but I haven't been privy to any of those conversations. I don't anticipate that, but it's always an option. But it would have to go through the board, and it'd be quite a process to revisit that. Next question is, how was the budget timeline control before now? These timelines are all set by law, statute. What I can explain in working with our team now, since I've come on board, is we are ensuring that certain things are done by certain points in time. We've also been meeting with our principals. We've been meeting in the fall, kind of seeing how they're doing like for 1920. We've got meetings scheduled with them in the spring to start planning ahead for next year. So those things we're doing now to help manage and putting the systems in place to review our finances. But in terms of the overall timeline, that's set in law. So we work around those particular time frames. They're good questions.
Okay, so if the money of the properties that have been sold is already in the budget, so yeah, it's in the budget. So why can't we use that money to satisfy the needs that our schools have, or as some budget solutions?
Yeah, so at this point, whether it's 1920 or 2021, we don't have that in the budget. We were looking at a sale, we are continuing to look at a sale of that property, but that would go into, like I mentioned, that separate fund. So we're not factoring in any of these numbers that I've shared with you at this point, but if it goes, and if we do sell that property, it would go into that fund and has to be used for the facilities, that purpose. And we can't control that piece, that's all set by law too. We would certainly spend it in different ways, but it's set by law. And then the next item is, as we adjust the budget to cover district costs and payroll, where are the cuts concentrated now? So for current year, we spent from 1920 through the early retirement program, we looked at a lot of positions that became vacant. There were a lot of, on the classified side of things, a lot of staff promoted. And so the positions that they promoted out of, we evaluated those where they needed. We started to make some realignments. So those areas in some cases were not filled, or those positions were eliminated. I want to say it was in May of last year, the HR team took an item to the board noting positions that were eliminated, and those were factored into our 19-20 budget. And we looked at those areas more on the staffing. The early retirement program was a way for us to adjust our staffing through that effort, through that process this current year. And then without this information, it's not easy to provide advice. We did share some of that information in our board update when we took to the board here in June, the areas that we focused on. Was primarily a lot of those positions, some and also in management. We have furloughs. Management has had furloughs. We've been working with some of our labor partners in other areas and looking at that for 19-20. Any other questions? Well, thank you so much. I know we covered quite a bit. I look forward to continuing to work with you as we regroup here probably in the near future as we get close to the end of June. But if any of you have any other questions, certainly work through your... Okay.
We're not done. So, our LCAP budget input form, if you look in your packets, we have this orange form. It has one question. What suggestions do you have for the Board of Trustees related to the LCAP budget? So I know you guys gave some wonderful questions. They were asked and answered. So if you have additional stuff you want to add, or if you have any suggestions, please write them down. I want to get this input back to the board so they can see what we're thinking, what we're processing, and where we're at. So we have allocated how long? Mr. Parliamentarian? Got 10 minutes? Okay, we have 9 minutes to fill out this form. And if you still have questions that you want to ask, please fill out those little orange cards, get them to us, and we'll get them. I'm being told 5 minutes, so we have 5 minutes. So more pressure. Okay, so if you have more questions, please fill out these forms and they'll be reviewed and answered and emailed back or presented in the next meeting. Okay, everyone, we have about 1 more minute. And if you have any open forum topics, please fill out this yellow form and get it to the board before the end of our break. We have 1 more minute.
Not that I remember now.
I'm just gonna take her and I know right now DELAC Title I. She's in the notebook and she's not with me.
Okay, I have everything in my office.
UNSSC notebooks right now.
Okay, everyone, if you're done with your forms, please collect them in a pile and we'll walk by and pick them up. And we're gonna go ahead and go on break. We'll be returning at 10:31, so about a 5-minute break.
Gracias.
seats. We're going to continue with our meeting and move on to agenda 6. I'll give you about 30 seconds to please get back to your seats. and we'll have our presentation by Ms. Delgado. Okay, did everyone get their forms filled out? Yes, we picked them up. Okay, we got some more to pick up, so we'll pick them up right now. But we're gonna move on to Agenda 6. It'll be regarding LCAP Goal 3, honoring parents and guardian participation. So if you can please look up and get ready for our presenter, Ms. Delgado. And if you have those forms that need to be picked up, please just raise your hand with them.
Hello, good morning. So we're having a little technical difficulty but nothing we can't handle all at the same time. And before we get started, I wanted to make sure that I thank you for all the amazing questions that you had for Dr. Salkia. I know it's a difficult topic, and this is going to be the topic for the rest of the semester and maybe for a few more years. So I want you to always continue to be authentic in your questions. And I know sometimes it's hard to ask the questions because how do you phrase it? And well, I mean this, but how do I write it? You know, it's okay. Talk to us, and maybe we can talk it out. We can talk up the question, and maybe I can write it out, so then I could give it to Dr. Salkin, and then she can answer what you mean. Because sometimes we read the questions and we're trying to interpret through the words what you actually mean, and we might not get it right. So, but I really appreciate Dr. Salkin was very impressed with all your questions. If you have more questions, feel free to, until the end of the meeting, maybe something pops into your head, write it out, and make sure we give it to Carlos or Juan, and we will make sure that all the questions are answered in your minutes for this meeting. We're good? All right. So, all right, as we move on to our LCAP Goal 3, this presentation was done by Manny Rubio and Anna Simmons at the November board meeting. So if you watched it, because their board meetings are live streamed, you're just going to hear a repetition of that. If you didn't, then it's going to be a treat for me because I couldn't be there. And so Anna presented for me, and she did an amazing, because you know Anna, right? Anna's just awesome. All right. So, yes, give her a hand. So she is going to get us started, and just as a reminder, just like Dr. Salkia was reminding us, as we developed the LCAP last year, LCAP Goal 3 is parent engagement. So parent engagement is basically us, the CRFs at the school sites, and your parent engagement plan that you have for every particular site, because every school is different and every school has different needs regarding engaging parents. And so what we're going to talk about is what we have done so far in the past, 2 years, 3 years, and current, and what we're doing, what our next steps are as we move into 2021. And we also are revising the LCAP. And remember, it's always a work in progress. Just like the budget and that calendar that you saw, we're always working on last year, on the current year, and on the year to come. So sometimes we might get a little ADHD, we might get a little crazy, and we're like, okay, what are we talking about last year? Are we talking about this? Oh no, this is next year. So it's okay if it's confusing. Sometimes ask. Stop and ask. So for our presentation, you don't need to wait until the end to ask questions, and that's just my policy. I'm okay with interacting and ask questions, raise your hand, and we're good. All right, Anna, you ready? She's gonna lead.
How about now? So can I have a raise of hands, and it's okay if you're a staff member, how many of you have students leaving the district because they're graduating? And seniors. And can I have a raise of hands, all of you, even if you're a staff member, if you have students that are coming back next year? Awesome. So something that is really important and I want you to know, in last raise of hands, how many of you know how many goals? The board cannot answer this question. How many goals are in our LCAP? I'm not gonna ask you, I just wanna know, all of you, if you know how many goals we have in our LCAP. Raise your hands if you know how many goals we have. Okay, so we have 4 goals. 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1 is teaching and learning. 2nd is safe learning environments. Goal 3 is foster and honor parent and community engagement, and that's what we're gonna talk about. And goal 4 is excellence in systems, and we're gonna talk about that either next month or in March. Where did this come from? This state has 8 priorities, and our district consolidated and focused on 4 priorities. We talked a little bit about that in the fall, and there, we outlined what the priorities are from the state, and they're all related to learning, social emotional learning, parent engagement, systems, and something that Ms. Delgado wanted to do this year is to expose as many parents to participation opportunities. But before I go forward, as Ms. Delgado said, it is really important that we know where we are. I know we're in difficult times, and I know we're on challenging times with the budget, but as a fellow parent and peer, I exhort you to pay attention to what happened in the last 2 years, what is happening now, and where we're going, because your voice is very important. I'm a parent too, and I want you to know that your voice is powerful. So I challenge you to know pay attention to what happened, so you know where we are and where we're going, and so you can ask for things that matter to you. So Ms. Delgado wanted to invite all the parents in the district to get to know each other and also know how many participation opportunities we had. So this year we had a mixer in our state and federal programs where we discussed how many opportunities we had. And also throughout the last year, we at our schools, in collaboration with my colleagues, can you stand up if you're a community relations facilitator? And that is equivalent for parent liaison. Can you please stand up if you're a parent liaison or AKCRF? So my colleagues at the site, they're the staff that is the face and the bridge between parents and the programs. And our job is to connect you with programs and to listen to you and to guide you and support you. We also cannot do this work alone. We work under the guidance of our SIS, the Coordinator of Integrated Services. If you are a SIS, can you stand up, please? So we want to thank our SIS because they're at the school site, they're the staff that guide our work and also are working really hard to support our students. At the district level, I work with Ms. Delgado. And if you are a principal, of course, can you stand up if you're a principal? So the LCAP Goal 3 comes from the state priorities. At the district level, we have a master plan, which is our LCAP. All the goals should always support student learning and academic achievement, but not just the academic, student well-being. At the school site, what guides what happens at your sites are your site plans, and our principals guide us at the school level, and well, the SIS and the CRF are the people that make things happen with regards to parent and community engagement. So in the last year, we partnered with different agencies in the South Bay and in San Diego to bring to you workshops, social emotional learning, parenting, We brought you workshops like Pique. We partnered with San Isidro Health Center, with South Bay Community Services, with Scripps Ranch, and San Diego County of Ed. Because of the input and recommendations that you've provided for the past 2 and 3 years, our district office brought the Parent Symposium, which made educational workshops available to as many parents that wanted to attend without capping it. The first year we had about 300 parents registered, and that was in the 2017-18 school year. In the last year we had over 500 parents registered to that event, and it was held at Montgomery High School. Last year, we also had the first parent-only session at the Staff Equity Symposium, and we want to thank some of you that went to that workshop, and it was facilitated by Ms. Delgado. We have also increased the number of college and career fairs, and we emphasized that we wanted parents to participate. We brought back the State and Federal Excellence Awards, where parent participation is honored, as well as staff and student academic achievement and improvement. And for the first time last year, we started working with the Nutrition Services Department to increase lunch applications. And it wasn't really talked about today, but as you know, one of the things that drive funding disbursement to our district is lunch application. Last year, I believe, Otay Ranch became a Title I school. So please encourage all your parents to apply. And I understand that there could be some stigma or pride attached to applying for lunch application, but just the fact that you're applying, you're disclosing your income, that can help the school receive funds for programs. And I cannot emphasize enough as a parent how important that is to our schools. In the 2017-18 school year, the district counted 1,000 parents attending our district events, and there was an increase in the school year 18-19 of 1,200 parents. And we're still counting. Thank you for participating and being here. We've had usually an average of 20 district parent meetings, and one of these, I know that it could be tedious of filling out paperwork, but I want you to know that everything that you write gets transcribed and summarized and sent to the board. And I encourage you and challenge you to ask what happens to that input, so that every time that I say something or I do something as a parent, I want to know what impact does it have to our students. So continue to ask those questions, continue to ask our district staff and at our meetings, so that what you wrote takes place. The school sites had an average of 300, almost 400 events. That's an average of 16 school events where parents are being engaged and where the schools are welcoming your participation. Something that was new in the last school year is that the district had LCUP community meetings. And most recently, I don't know if you saw that, we also have budget meetings. I don't know if I think Dr. Salkett announced that today. So please show up to those meetings. Please ask us. Please, it's okay to bother me or harass me or just ask. When are the community LCUP meetings? What does that mean? And what I always ask, and I even ask my boss, what is that going to do? What can I do to make a difference in my child's school or my community? So as I said, our district office wanted to bring 500 parents and expose them to our programs and educational opportunities. We have other partners. Some of them are sitting in our audience that send parents throughout the state or out of the state to provide learning opportunities, but we also want to make sure that our entire community has access to this information, and that's why we continue to have the Parent Symposium. On this slide, it says that the date will be April 25, but we're thinking about changing the date to the fall, and there's a reason for that. As I said, every time that we institute initiatives, we always ask, how can we make sure that the services and information that we provide our parents have a greater impact in our students? And so we felt that by moving into the fall, this information will be fresh, and some of our parents that have students that are coming back can be better served with that information, as opposed to having it at the end of the year when we are close to graduating or going into summer. Ms. Delgado, also thanks to her leadership, is working with some of our credit unions and bringing scholarships, and she's going to talk to you a little more about that, to sponsor parents to go to college or pursue professional certificates at Southwestern College. We're going to announce the process of selection and the award date for that scholarship. Something that is new this year too, we wanted to make our state and federal programs website more parent-friendly. I know we're listening to your meeting evaluations and to your feedback, even though sometimes we look like we're busy, we are paying attention. Some of you have talked at our board meetings that some of our information needs to be relevant, that you would like a webpage in our district that cross-references all the information that is parent relevant. Please continue to ask for information that is relevant to you. Our webpage, we're trying to upload any events that are major and significant, so please visit our webpage. Something that we brought back, actually that we instituted, I'm sorry, because you asked for it in the last year, in your ALCA Goal 3 input, you asked that you wanted the district and the schools to provide more information. I'm a busy parent, I have 3 kids, they're all in different school levels, elementary, middle school, and high school, and so I know how important having that information, digital information, how important it is. So I personally cannot complain that our schools are not sending us information. I want to have information via text, via Facebook, via Twitter, via WhatsApp, and we created a parent page, and actually this was coming from your input. Please visit our SUHSD Parents Facebook page. We announce district events as well as community events. Because you asked for it, we also created a Sweetwater Parent WhatsApp page. If you want the link and you're not part of our group, please let us know, we'll send you the link. And this is an informational group only. If you're familiar with WhatsApp, it can become crazy if you respond, so we only post events, or you're welcome to post things that are happening at your school without commenting. We also started a parent and community YouTube channel, and the name of the YouTube channel is Sweetwater Connected. That's where you will find our joint meeting videos. We are recording, you can find some of the live streaming of the Parent Symposium, and we have some leadership training in that channel as well.
Real quick on that, we only have 5 subscribers, so go to the YouTube and subscribe.
By the way, and this is for the school leaders, and all of you are school leaders because you're here representing your school, there are some videos on, for example, Robert Rules and parliamentary procedure on how to run your meetings, and of course we will upload more videos as the year progresses. And our CRF group, our parent liaisons, we wanted to be more effective in providing support to our principals and our CIS and our community, and we have asked Ms. Delgado for continuous professional development. This is one snapshot of one of our recent trainings. We meet every month, and we're being instructed by our alternative ed TOSA, that's a teacher on special assignment, on the alternative education programs. I wanted to add a little comment on the side about that, how important it is that you know about all of our programs. Before I worked for the district, I thought there was only one way to graduate high school, and that was to go to a traditional school. And once I was trained by our district staff, there are many schools in our district and outside of our district. Yes, I said that. Because it is so important that you know that there are many ways for our schools to have a high school diploma. And what I want as a parent for my kids is for them to go to college. So how they get there, it doesn't matter. So please ask us about those programs. In the last year also, Ms. Delgado led our initiative for our CRFs, our CIS, an attendance coordinator in our neighboring districts to be trained on professional family engagement. We received a certificate from San Diego State University that Training was sponsored by the Western Equity Assistance Center from Colorado State University, WEAC, that's a long name. But they sponsored our training. We, National School District and Chula Vista School District trained alongside with us. And the core of the curriculum was written by Dr. Karen Mapp. She's a long research educator from Harvard University on the professional parent engagement initiatives. And some of the projects that we have on the works is continued collaboration with our local districts on how to improve parent engagement. We continue to work with agencies, some of them I already mentioned, the Institute for Public Strategy. Some of our CRFs have taken the lead on educating our parents on the dangers of vaping. I want to thank Gladys from Southwest High and Yadira for bringing those workshops to our schools. We also, as a CRF, are working with our CIS and our principals on improving our parent engagement portfolios and site plans. For the next school year, we are hoping, for the current school year, we're hoping to be trained on mental health for parents and for youth. And hopefully for the next year, we would like to bring a parenting training class for at-risk students. And this at-risk means kids that are high truant, that are low performing, or that have out of control behavior. I know that many times we hear about students that have straight A's or have AP classes or IB or they're in the honor roll. Then we have students that are in the middle of the road, and then we have students that are not engaged in school. And to us, that is personally and in our department, that is very important because they're still our students and they're just not engaged in school yet. Ms. Delgado will talk to you a little bit more about the parent scholarship, and now we'll hand the mic to Ms. Delgado.
All right, thank you, Ana. And she said it all. I think it's going to be real quick for me. So one of the things that they presented in their presentation was how Manny Rubio works with the district and our on communications department, and what's their official thing? The grants and communication. So they also, just like we have established a YouTube channel, WhatsApp, and we are on Twitter, our district also has Twitter handles and Facebook, and as you see on their main page. So as a district, we have Facebook, and we have 3,678 people that are following us. On Twitter, 4,361. Instagram and YouTube subscribers, they have 621. We want to get there, so make sure you subscribe to our channel as well. So, and also, if you haven't seen these videos, the district Grants and Communication also puts out districts promotional videos for every school and for every program. One that we got to see that was exceptional was the adult school video. So if you haven't seen these videos, like I saw Hilltop High had one, CTE has one, the robotics program has one. So they do a great job with those promotional videos. If I were you, being like, Anna's like, we're parents, we're always talking about our kids. We always go into get a link, and then we send it off to what the followers that we have in our Twitter handle or Facebook. So share, be proud of your school. Take these video links and share them with your friends and say, hey, my son goes to Hilltop High, or my son goes to Eastlake, and this is what they're doing. So it's okay to boast about the schools that you're at. But as you can see, we also, since November 2017, they brought live streaming to all our board meetings. So we don't have to sit there until 10 o'clock at night. So that's very convenient. So Grants and Communication also did that. They have 46 videos, 26,000 views already, and over 90,000 total video views. So it's very popular. Also, we have content, like I was saying, content videos. So they have fall sports, Montgomery Middle has a video, and the visual, of course, visual performing arts have a lot of videos that they do for their work. And we have, and they're not long, they're 1 to 3 minutes, and it's the message of what that activity, and I think there was somebody who mentioned the importance of extracurricular activities and as a mode and a tool to engage students in school, because as we know, sometimes math and English and science, they're all great, but our kids go to school to socialize and to educate themselves and to be well-rounded students and citizens. So this helps too. Media relations, we have over 100 contacts with media since 1920. And we have, if you don't read the newspaper or you don't log on to our news feeds from Voice of San Diego or from San Diego Union Tribune or any of the other newspapers, we have over 160 stories about us. Okay, pro and con, but you should read all the stories. Okay, it's about us. So be informed about our stories, because many of those stories are positive. But the ones you get on Facebook and everybody spreads around, they have a tendency of being negative. Why? Because if you're in media, if you're a reporter, if you're into that career, negativity sells. Everybody knows that, right? So they're not going to publicize the positive ones. They give this much space for positive, but that doesn't sell. And that's all because of our society, right? So spread the positive ones. Don't spread the negative ones. The currents. Everybody read the currents? Yep. All right. So back in the day, Anna and I were talking about this. We used to get them in paper. Staff used to get these in paper with their paycheck back in the day. But now it's all digital. So you can log on to our district website, and they update every month. They do a current. And they have over 3,000 online subscriptions. And as you can see, we have multimedia platforms, and you can have links. They have links. Okay, yes. Sorry. We're just so excited. Okay, so we want to share everything. Okay, so of course, every parent has gotten these links to the Hanover survey. They ask you all these questions about how you feel about the service, how you feel about your school, and then give suggestions. This survey is very important. The students do it, you do it, because that gives us feedback so we can improve our services. Don't just say, I have to answer all those questions. Oh, I don't feel like it. No, please set up some time when you get the survey to answer it, because it really does give us a lot of feedback and data so we can structure our programs more effectively. And then, of course, the last one, let me tell you a little bit about the parent symposium. We're trying to move it to the fall, like Anna was saying, in partnership with hopefully a local university, so we can have a parent university. So you go to the workshops just like the parent symposium, but you sign up and we specialize the workshops on the needs of the parents. So imagine getting a certificate from Sweetwater University or some name, I don't know what we're going to call it, but to get certified on maybe something that you're interested in being more of an expert about. So we're working on that. The student symposium or the equity conference, we're trying to get that going as well. This is where we hear the voice of the students so they can advise us. Just like you are leaders in your schools, you advise the district on things that we can do so we can structure our services so we can service your school. So you're an advisory committee, right? So we need a student group that advises the local leaders, not just our board and our superintendent and our teachers and administrators, but also the city mayors, the Congress, whoever represents the city. They need to be heard. As you already know, there's a 16-year-old who is now worldwide known that she's pushing the climate change and the urgency in that. So young people have a very strong voice. So we want to give them a platform and learn from them so we can then structure our services to serve them. And also the parent scholarships. I don't know if it's on there, but parent scholarship, just to let you know, we're working on a partnership with our sponsors from last year who are very interested in trying to educate and being part of educating parents. Last year, I learned from you that some of you have a lot of dreams. just like your kids, to go back to school. Some of you were in school, but never finished. Some of you wanted to finish, go and get your bachelor's, but then kids happen, or life happened. So if you look at the research, and I've told you guys this before, the best indicator of a young student to go to college, the more probabilities a student has to go to college is if the parent has gone to college. So using that strategy and that research, we want to educate you. We want you to be the role models of your students so you can show them what it is to be college educated instead of telling them. So, of course, going to college costs money. So we started with asking sponsors from the symposium last year, hey, do you think you'll be interested in being a sponsor for a parent scholarship? And everybody looked at me like always, I'm used to it, that I'm weird. Like, what? No, we do student scholarships. Oh, no, I know. But this is for parents. And so I shared the research with them, and they said, hey, we like that. Yeah, we can do it. So we just recently had a meeting with some of our officers, and so we're working on that. Hopefully we're ready to present that information and that process in May in our Excellence Awards. So we're working on a lot of things. And we're very proud of the work that Ana has done along with state and federal office. And, you know, if you're not having fun, you're wrong, right? I always say that. If you're not having fun, you're wrong. So we are having a lot of fun in state and federal, and I think that's important. So any questions? I think we're done, right? We don't have questions. I think we're done. No questions? Can you, if you have any questions for us, just put them in your cards and then we'll collect them because we're running out of time. Thank you so much.
So actually, yes, so we're gonna give you, can we give them 1 minute to write the questions? Okay, so you have 1 minute to write the questions, submit it to us, and then after that, we're gonna do an activity, and I'm gonna need the help of our sis that are here. Miss Claudia, Miss Karen, can you help us man some of our easel boards? Miss Kashani, can you take one? And Ms. Delgado and I will take another one. But before you start asking questions and you write the input, I want you to know one thing. I know there's a lot of difficult times going in our district, and maybe when you go to your schools, you are very optimistic and you're not always received with enthusiasm. I know I'm a parent as well. Please don't stop in believing. I say this to my colleagues as well. Don't stop believing that there could be change. Don't underestimate the power that you can change. For example, I wanted to thank Ms. Nora Rocha because she saw a need in our department and she has helped us connect with 2 sponsors. So can we please give a little bit of a round of applause to Ms. Rocha? So we all have connections. We all are in our community. Some of us have different connections, but don't underestimate your connections and your ability to drive change. I'll let you right now.
We need a motion to add 10 more minutes. If anybody makes a motion to add 10 more minutes, so we can finish our meeting. Nombre? Nora Rocha, motions to add. Few seconds, thank you. All in favor? Yeah, thank you. Raise your hands. Yes? Hello, everybody? All in favor to add 10 more minutes? Thank you.
Okay, for the activity that we're gonna do, and we're running out of time. I'm gonna count you off, so we can have 4 groups. So number ones will be with Claudia. Number 2s will be with Karen over there, our sis. 3 is gonna be with me, and then 4 is gonna be in the back with Ms. Kashani. So we're gonna start off with right here. 1. Hello. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 6, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 3, then 4, then 1, and then back to Southwest High School. 2, 3, 4. 1, 3, 4. 1, of course. 2, 3. We got you. And then 1, 2, 3, and then 4. Oh, you're gonna participate? Okay, sorry. No 1, 2, 3. Okay, 1s over here. Let's go. 2s over here in the top corner. 3s over there with Anna. 4 over there with Ms. Kashani. All right, 5 minutes to answer and write down any suggestions and comments to the feedback. So here's the question. Please provide input on how the district or your school can improve communication and marketing outreach for our district. This is easy. You just heard about all the things that we're doing. What can we do better under LCAP Goal 3? 5 minutes in your groups. Introduce each other, but everybody knows each other, but introduce each other. 2 is over here. 5 minutes. That's 3. 2 is over here. Excellent.
Please provide input of how this or your school can improve communication and participation. Proporcione la recomendación sobre cómo el distrito o su escuela puede mejorar la participación de participation. Somebody mentioned about volunteering and that we were going to do forms in order to fill them out and fill it for you guys. So it'll show. I think that's specifically for her school for high school. And that you have to see with your school secretary. Yes, we usually do it. CRS? You have a like yeah, there's different programs that each trying to tell me, so the different days they go this way.
Yeah, the first thing is about everything the
patient. 3 minutes.
Yeah, so parents participation the school once the parents ours still says a winter break, I'm sure. Sí, ya me lo pero no open doors. And all activities. That's an essential.
seats, and we're gonna get back to our topic on hand. Okay, I'll give you like a minute to close out your conversations. Okay, everyone, please return to your seats and we can go over our topics. Okay, everyone, please break up from your groups and return to your seats so we can start wrapping this meeting up. Anna or Ms. Delgado, please continue with your presentation. And please return to your seats. We're continuing with our topics.
All right, I know we didn't get all done, but we'll continue this activity in February because we do need to have more time to reflect and get your input. So we will continue this, but if you can come back to your seats, we are running out of time. We want to get you out of here in a timely manner. So we will hand it over to our fearless leader.
Okay. So thank you for the input. Like you said, we're going to review it, go over it, and then represent it in our February meetings. But now we're going to move on to our agenda 7, which is old and new business, which I believe is none. No, that one we're fine. Yeah. Okay, so now there is none, so we're moving on to agenda 8, announcements, and this is we have several, so we'll start off with Anna. And majority of these will be the flyers that are in front of you, but she's going to go over them real quick, and you can review the information that she's going to present.
So I'm gonna give the mic. I wanted to thank the United Census Bureau staff. They came to and knocked our door, and they came in. She has a couple of announcements regarding the census.
Hi everybody, my name is Edie Flumeli. I'm with the U.S. Census Bureau. I'm actually part of the recruiting department. We are looking for enumerators. They are the ones that go address to address, and they go face to face with somebody that has not returned the census form. If you know about the census, you know how important it is, especially to schools. for your children, by all means. We are looking for those people. This is coming up. We're already hiring now, from now all the way till June, actually. The census numbers are extremely important. We pay $21 an hour plus 58 cents a mile, okay? It's temporary work. We have very flexible schedules. We ask minimum 20 hours, 20 to 40. You give your boss your schedule 1 week ahead of time. We would like for you to work weekends and evenings, okay, when people are home. We pay training, we pay for the fingerprints, and we pay weekly, okay? The governor signed a waiver that if you have CalFresh or CalWorks, this income is exempt. You may keep your benefits, okay? The requirements are 18 and up, able to show that you can work in the U.S. or a citizen, okay, so you need a valid Social Security, and able to pass a background check, okay? Those are the requirements. It's a great job, great opportunity, temporary, 1 to 4 months. We really don't know because we don't know who's not going to respond to the census. Census comes out in March, okay? Be ready for that. Also, we're looking for training spaces. Anybody's available. Once we hire these people that go out into the community and do very important work, we need somewhere to train them. So if you know of a place that could possibly host us, please let Anna know. Thank you, guys. We're leaving some flyers here. Have a great day.
Thank you for coming. We appreciate you, and we appreciate you coming to our office. So regarding the 20 census, tomorrow, Thursday, mañana, jueves, from 12 to 1, in the New Directions Family Resource Center, the one that is right next to Rice Elementary. It's 348 East Street. They're providing a training on the benefits of the census and how that is going to impact our community and what kind of funding will their South Bay receive based on the census results. So that includes lunch. It's 1 hour from 12 to 1. If you are interested, the training will be in English. Please let me know because I have to respond to them. There will be a second training in Spanish, same time, 12 to 1 on February 5th. There's also a couple of events in your packet. I don't want to take too much time. There's a Parent and Student Career Series coming up during January 29th. Please look at your package, and there's a second one coming up on March 11th. This is at Chula Vista High School. Please look at your flyers. Montgomery High School will also have a parenting class. The dates are on the flyer and the time as well. It's on family life with teenagers and la vida con adolescentes en casa. And that's all I have for you. Thank you. Please, if you're interested in the census training, come to me.
Okay, Minerva?
Okay, hi. I'm Minerva Weinberger. I'm a CI from Montgomery Middle. February 4, at 9 o'clock, we have the danger of vaping. We have a workshop. 9 o'clock in the library. In February 11, we have Video Ninja. Again, it's a workshop from 8:30 to 10:30 in Montgomery Middle too. So you are welcome to come, guys.
Okay, and Emma Wong?
I'm with ESAFE Middle and Yuang. ESAFE Educational Foundation is hosting a back to the 80s night. It is on January 31st. ESAFE Education Foundation does they're a nonprofit organization that does fundraising for all schools in the ESAFE area, including all the elementary and the high school and middle school. It's going to be a silent auction, live auction, and there'll be various food venues and drink venues from the ESAFE and Chula Vista area that will be offering samples and a lot of drinks. Right now it is $60 per person, and everything is like included, except for of course, the auction portion. And it's 80s themed, so you're encouraged to come in 80s themed. So, thank you.
Okay, Maritza?
Hi, good morning. San Isidro High School, Maritza Chavarin. And on February 7, we're going to have a suicide prevention workshop for parents. at 9 p.m., at 9 a.m., sorry, at the Parent Center at San Isidro High School. And also on April 1st, we're having our Doctora Villarreal workshops to put it in your agenda. I know it's a little bit more ahead, but start planning for that. But February 7, suicide awareness prevention workshop, San Isidro High School, 9 a.m.
Thank you. And Maria Sasamanos? I think she's not. Okay. Okay, we have no public communications from what I hear from the board, so we're going to move on to our agenda 10, and that's our meeting evaluation forms. These are your yellow forms. Please fill these out. You can leave them on the table when you're done, or just hand them to us.